Chosroes II, known as Khusro Parvez to the Arabs, he was the fourth son of Hormuz and the grandson of Chosroes I, Anushirvan the Just. The murder of Hormuz in 590 AD was succeeded by enthronement of Chosroes II, but after suffering a defeat at the hands of a rebel chief, Bahram, he had to solicit the protection of Maurice, the Byzantine emperor. The fugitive prince was helped by Maurice with a powerful army which restored his kingdom after two fierce battles on the banks of Zab and the confines of Madian. While the majesty of the Persian emperor was revived, Phocas, who promoted himself to the vacant purple, killed his adopted father, Maurice. Chosroes II decided to avenge the death of Maurice and invaded the Byzantine dominions in 604 AD. Chosroes II continued to extend his triumphant march to Constantinople, even after the death of Phocas, rolling in the dust all the Byzantine provinces, Syria, Egypt and Asia Minor, in the rapid tide of his success. By 616 AD Chosroes II had reached the summit of his victorious campaign, for he seemed to announce the approaching dissolution of the Byzantine Empire. But his insolent demands at last animated the dormant valor of Heraclius, who put the Iranians to rout and penetrated into the heart of Persia. Chosroes II had to ultimately leave his country and seek refuge in some far-off place, and thus the battle between the two empires came to an end in 628 AD. Chosroes II was, according to the unanimous verdict of historians, the greatest emperor of Iran. In the east, his writ ran up to the northwestern parts of India. During his rule, the glory and magnificence of royal court had surpassed the limits of fancy. Iran was, during this period, more than a match to any country of the world in its ostentatious living, luxury of its nobles and the splendid workmanship of its artisans. Writing about the attainments of Chosroes II, the noted Arab historian At-Tabari says, "Made of a sterner stuff, he was the most prudent, far-sighted emperor of Persia. Deeds of valor, exploits of victory, abundance of wealth, stroke of luck and favorable circumstances had so bunched up during his reign as never before." It was for these reasons that he came to be known as Pervez, which meant victorious in Arabic. In the arts of civilization and ever-new innovations of edibles and drink, Iran was without any parallel. In the manufacture of perfumes it had attained perfection. The people had developed a taste for savory preparation, luscious liquors, and the finest perfumes. Love of music had grown into craze, which had stipulated its development in the reign of Chosroes II. He was so fond of amassing wealth and artifacts that when his treasures was transferred from an old building to a new one, at Ctesiphon in 607 to 8 AD, it consisted of 468 million mithqals of gold valued at 375 million gold sovereigns. In the 13th year of his reign, Chosroes II had 830 million mithqals of gold in his exchequer. The reign of Chosroes II lasted up to 37 years, after which his son Shirve took over. Muqawqis. He was the prefect as well as patriarch of Alexandria, acting as the governor of Egypt on behalf of the Byzantine emperor. The Arab historians normally mentioned him by his title, Muqawqis, but they hotly dispute his personal identity. Abu Salih, who wrote in the 6th century after Hijra, 12th century AD, gives his name as Jurayd bi Mina al-Muqawqis, which is corruption of George, son of Mina. Ibn Khaldun says that the then Muqawqis was a Copt, while al-Makrizi asserts that he was a Roman. When the Persians conquered Egypt in 616 AD, the Byzantine prefect and patriarch was John the Almoner, who fled from Egypt to Cyprus and died there. George was appointed in his place as the Archbishop of Merkite Church, who remained in office from 621 AD till his death in 630 AD, known to the Arab historians as Juraj. They give the year of his appointment as 621 AD. Alfred J. Butler is of the opinion that practically seized all the Arab historians about a person by the title of Muqawqis, appointed by the Byzantine Emperor Herculius after the recovery of Egypt from the Persians, who was both its patriarch and governor. They have, therefore, identified George as Muqawqis. But he also says that Muqawqis was only a title of the patriarch, since it was applied to the governor in the early Coptic manuscripts. It is also possible that some Coptic patriarch might have assumed the ecclesiastical and political powers after the conquest of Egypt by the Persians. However, as the treaty of peace between the Romans and the Persians was executed in the year 628 AD, the letter of the prophet was more probably received by the Patriarch of Egypt when he was more or less independent. This is why, it appears, that the prophet addressed him as the chief of the Copts. Egypt was the most fertile dominion of the Byzantine Empire, far exceeding other provinces in population as well as in resources. It was also the granary of the Byzantine capital. When Amr al-As entered Egypt at the head of the conquering Arab force, 14 years after the prophet had sent his letter to Muqawqis, he wrote to Caliph Umar al-Khattab about that land. The country is exceedingly fertile and green. Its length covers a journey of 1 month and its breadth is of about 10 days. A census of Egypt taken by AMRB Thalaz in 20A.H/640 AD to find out the number of persons on whom jizya could be levied, showed that the population exceeded 6,100,000, of which being Romans. AMRB as also wrote to the Caliph, "I have taken a city of which I can but say that it contains 4,000 palaces, 4,000 baths, 40,000 Jews and 400 theatres for the entertainment of the nobles."